changes I made since the last time you would have looked at this, because there are only a few of them really. And then if anyone has any questions, we can obviously talk about that. So the first big thing that was brought up previously was the way in which we'd classify the different sized systems for solar. So it seems fairly common in all of the different ordinances that I've looked at, to have this small, medium, and large scale division between them, but what was, showing and coming up with a pretty big variety was the sizes that people and communities used to determine, what each scale was. For the small scale, originally the last time we had in there 15,000 square feet and less of total airspace, from the panels. That's considered small scale, and that was coming from the model ordinance language from the state, but that seemed pretty big. And looking at some articles and things about your typical size solar needs for a residential property, it seems really big. As looking even at some of the permits that we've issued for existing solar energy systems for residential properties in town already, they're usually more in the hundreds of square foot range. And you might, we have an instance where someone had a multifamily structure, and that might put it up to a few thousand square feet, but it doesn't get into that over 5,000 square foot range, certainly. But so when we looked at model ordinances, I saw some with as little as 1,000 square feet being the top end of the small scale, and that Belfast model ordinance theirs was 20,000 square feet and less, which seemed pretty high. So I do think that there are instances where a couple thousand square feet might be useful, and since the idea was to, I think, allow these residential projects to happen in general and not to regulate them too strictly, leaning on the more lenient, larger size is useful, because you're not going to prevent anyone from doing a project if they have a multifamily structure or something. But also not making it so large that you're going to have something so far beyond what is needed for a residential property. So that's kind of why I landed on that 5,000 square foot number as being the top end for the small scale solar energy systems, because that seemed to capture what that use was.
Kyle?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We fairly recently permitted a project on Benneck Road. Just to give me a sense of size, do you know what the square footage of that was?
Right. So that was, I think, 33,640 square feet, if that's what I was looking at the permit.
Yep.
So that would fall in that range. So that's kind of what I was thinking. If something, there was something like that where, you had multiple units, someone wanting to have a system contributing to multiple units, but still on sort of a more personal, their own property type of scale, it would still be covered and be allowed. Obviously, they'd have to meet the rest of the standards that we came up with. So, you don't want someone creating issues for their abutting properties, but in general, it would be doable.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. So then, moving on, that would obviously change the medium scale kind of classification from being in that 5,000 square feet to 2 acre range. This is more of, if you remember kind of the community type system, this could be something done by, more of an institutional use, a school, university, that sort of thing. And then the large scale would remain the same at 2 acres. It seems like the minimum size for these larger scale commercial farms is 4 acres. That would be about 1 megawatt, I guess, of power. So having that large scale at 2 acres is going to capture all of those sorts of properties. But the fact that we were allowing medium scale systems in places like the MDR, didn't want to make the large scale start at like 4 acres, because then it opens up the potential to have a 3.5, 4 acre solar farm, in more of the town's growth area in the MDR or commercial too. And that would take up a lot of, potential opportunities for housing or businesses to go in those districts where, that's the primary use of those districts.
Yep.
So then, you go down to the land use table, the zoning where each one would be allowed. That remained the same. The roof mounted systems and the small scale ground mounted systems allowed in every district. And then getting progressively more strict as you move up to the large scale systems. The next change, I made a little amendment to in section 1B, where it says medium scale ground mounted systems are allowed as an accessory or principal use, except that in the MDR and C2, they would only be allowed as a principal, or not allowed as a principal use, sorry. And the goal of that was kind of going back to what I was just saying. You don't necessarily want someone in those districts where you want to focus the town's growth to purchase a property just to put 1 acre solar system, when that property could be better used for housing or commercial opportunities, which is the main focus of those districts. Moving down, the next was a minor amendment on page 3 to the height requirements, that just sort of talked about if you have a solar system as an accessory use, as you get further away from the property line, you could have it be higher. And this was something that I saw referenced in multiple ordinances, model ordinances that I was looking at. That 22 foot range seemed to be a fairly common number, as you're set back further from the property line. You're able to have some more height for the systems without causing any sort of issues or impacts on your neighbors.
Can I interrupt you for just a second, Kyle?
Sure.
We have a person, and I don't know the difference, but there's a member of our community that wants to know what would be kilowatt production capability rather than square footage for a small or a large scale, like a way to judge that. I know you've looked up some of these.
Yeah, so I did look at kind of the correlation between those. And a residential project, from what I could tell, could be anywhere from 2 kilowatts to 20 or 25 usually. I think a 5 kilowatt project translated to maybe like 300 square feet, something around there. The reason for going with square footage, though, is because when you're looking at it from a land use perspective, you want to focus on the impact that it has on the ground. And, so we're saying that this size space, physical size, is, what we're looking at. And, this size requires this level of review, and this size triggers another level of review and looking at certain things. The production that size creates might change over time as technologies improve. So I think that was the primary reason for going with square footage over, mentioning the wattage. But I do think that a lot of the square footage numbers, if you look at it, how they translate to watts, you'd see some correlation there. All right. Moving on, the last piece that was really new, the main kind of new thing from last time was sort of towards the end of the draft language in sections 10 and 11, talking about the removal process, just clarifying a few things. In the removal section, specifying that the property owner would have to have plans that they submitted, kind of detailing the removal of the system. And then the decommissioning process is all new language from the last time. The one thing I would like feedback on is as far as, if the town was to require a performance guarantee up front when these are the large scale projects, when they were going through the review process, if we were requiring a performance guarantee, what percentage of the project would we be looking at capturing, or what percentage of the removal of that system would be looking at capturing. Elsewhere in the ordinance, when we're talking about subdivision improvements, infrastructure improvements, we have a standard, that we look for a 100% improvement guarantee. But, I did note in other ordinance language from elsewhere that I had seen up to 150% guarantee. And I imagine that's just to give the town enough, kind of wiggle room to make sure that they have the funds covered to remove the system if the property owner failed to remove it themselves. So I'm open to any feedback and discussion on the section 11 and the decommissioning. And I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
So I guess for myself, if we're looking for what the standard would be on the guarantees, I think it'd be best to keep it consistent with everything else within the town. I mean, yeah, Belfast has the 150, but I just think that would just kind of like be a little bit too much. Sophie?
I think one of the differences we might look at deviating a little bit is that the performance guarantee on subdivisions holds for 2 years. So the project is done and we hold it for 2 years, and then we release it. When you're talking about decommissioning, you're far into the future. And so I think you want to just have some protection for inflation is my thought. What do you think, Kyle? Or do you build that into your initial 100%?
Right. So the subdivision, the guarantees for 2 years. And then if the applicant comes forward and requests an extension on that infrastructure, it's kind of recalculated from there. So it's a more, you're looking at more recent prices. Whereas this, since you're talking about the removal, you could be years and years away. So I mean, I'm not sure if just having a higher percentage is necessarily the right way, or if there's some way of recalculating that percentage as it, that amount as time goes by, and kind of getting an updated guarantee.
Could we just use calculate 100% calculated on future costs? So essentially use some language that we see in other contracts. So it's 100%, but you're basing it on your trend with CPI to get you closer to what it would reasonably be at the end of the useful life of the project, which you would know what that useful life would be.
I think that actually makes sense. I like that idea.
Did you,
What is the typical useful life? How long is it?
I cannot remember off the top of my head. I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
So I know I've looked into it, but I don't remember exactly.
Is it
do you know
like,
why Belfast, I'm sorry,
nope, that's fine.
went with 150%? Maybe you didn't, maybe I wasn't paying attention.
No, I don't know their specific reasoning for choosing that.
I actually like the recalculating concept, which is what we do with another kind of project. It allows the developer to get into the large scale solar farm without as much upfront, but yet we're keeping pace with inflation by recalculating every 5 years or every whatever we decided on. That seems like a fairer process to me.
Anybody else have questions? None? So,
Not sure what to ask.
yeah. Well,
So I guess I'm mainly just looking for if anything is missing, like any big piece items that people see missing from the draft language. Are there any areas that just aren't covered at all? If anything looks like, the topic is there, but the specifics just seem way off. If there's any kind of areas where people would like a more in-depth research or information to kind of back up what's written in the ordinance, things like that is really, I think, where we're at right now.
So Kyle, I mean, this is, this information you provided today actually helps me a bit further than from last time. I think that they're capturing what I personally, but more of a less for me was the size of things. It was like from our last meeting that I was actually really curious about, and what you've done has actually made it so it seems better and more understandable for me. The removal stuff, that in itself is probably going to take a little bit more working because I'm not really sure. I mean, I do, like we said, I do like the recalculating portion of it. It makes sense as you move forward, but I'm not really sure, given what other communities do, what they have to deal with, if they've had it for a while, what it looks like to kind of maybe help us a little bit better understand it.
Sure, I could come up with maybe a wider range of examples of that process and see if anyone's had to go through that process as well, if there are any examples of that sort of removal actually taking place yet, that I could kind of bring back and walk through with everyone.
So can you hear me? Yes, okay. We got a chat message from Dan Dixon saying that solar panel output degrades at around 0.5% per year, depending on the kind of panel, less for other panels. So after 50 years, the array would still produce 75% of its original capacity. And inverters generally need to be replaced every 10 to 15 years. And so the next question was, do you have a sense of how long the system would be in place? And so that's answering that.
There was also, I don't I don't know how many comments you want to take, but there was a comment about going back to the using square footage and and what would that mean for rooftop systems. The idea is that the square footage, the small, medium, large scale would apply to just the ground mounted systems, and that rooftop systems would always, a rooftop system would have to be accessory by nature because it needs to be on something to be a rooftop system. So those dimensions would not, the small, medium, large scale would not apply to rooftop systems as I wrote it, that those would always just require a permit because you're not going to be impacting any natural areas or breaking ground at all. It's so regardless of whether it's 300 square feet or several thousand square feet, you have a massive building on the campus or in the commercial 1 district, a big manufacturing facility, that would always be considered just an accessory use, and the square footage limitations would not apply to those. Now, we did have standards written into the ordinance, specific things that the code officer would look at with the town engineer and life safety inspector to make sure that those were still being reviewed thoroughly, but it was being reviewed for things specific to a rooftop system that had more to do with the weight of it on the roof and things to do with the building. Whereas site plan review is not best designed to look at those things. Site plan review is better designed to look at the impacts on the ground and to the surrounding area. So that was the logic there.
Makes sense. Does anybody else have any questions of Kyle?
Just one sort of comment, just addressing some of the points brought up here. First of all, I apologize for showing up late. It was a bit of a commute in from Bangor to Orono. So talking about like what Dan said here in the comment about approximately after 50 years, you're looking at 75% of capacity. I think, and looking at how long will these last, I think that's unknown because it depends a lot on advances in technology. I mean, because if you think of where we've come for the last 30 years, I don't know if we'd even imagine where we are now. So who knows where we'll be in 25, 30 years with all this technology. So anyway, just interesting.
That's a good point. I think that brings into the thought of the recalculating as we go forward with that stuff too. So, I guess, Kyle, so for me personally, it's the bit more information on if anybody's done removal and what it would look like to get a better understanding, because I really don't have an understanding of exactly what that would end up being. So I don't know if there's anything else anybody else had for Kyle that they wanted to have looked at. Hearing nothing. Does that help you out, Kyle?
Yeah. Yep, I can get some more information on that part of it and bring that back for next time.
Okay. So moving on to number 3, resolution request to support extended producer responsibility EPR for packaging lot as presented by the Natural Resources Council of Maine, which Councillor Robinson will be discussing. I want to first, before we get out there, I know that this was put out to the public that this was going to have a discussion tonight. So no one's thinking that anything out of sorts. This is not anything about we're getting rid of recycling. So I want people out there to know that Cheryl's here to kind of discuss this with us.
And yes, if we could, Councilor Grenier, I would like to request that some of our community members are here tonight and would also like to speak in support of or on the resolution. So if we could let that happen, that would be great as well.
Sophie, do you have the capabilities of allowing? Okay.
Okay.
We'll do the raise the hand thing.
Okay,
Raise their hand.
just, you can do that, okay. I don't have that on my screen, but, so yeah, so this is a kind of a revisit of a resolution that was brought to a workshop, I believe, sometime last year, way before the COVID. So my sense of time is, my timing is gone. But it's a resolution that has come before the Environmental Natural Resources Committee in Augusta. It's already been heard. It was voted ought to pass, and it was going to the legislature for a vote. It's kind of a twofold resolution. It is about, it's in support of recycling, municipal recycling, but it's also in support of adoption of an extended producer responsibility packaging law in Maine. And several municipalities have signed on already. I just wanted to let the community members, I know one of our community members is here who brought it back to my attention and asked if I would bring it back to council. And if he would like to speak, if that's okay, or if anyone has any questions. If you could, if I can share my screen, Sophie, I have it up on my, can I share my screen? No, not yet. So we can actually see it. And it is, so that we can see it on a regular, there we go.
Does that work now?
It's just going to look like a PDF here, so it's not going to be fancy or anything. So this is to the letter addressing the Maine municipal officials. So this is to us. And I think we've all had a chance to read it. It's a recycling reform campaign. It has been, it's been vetted through several municipalities in the state and adopted by several municipalities in the state. This is the actual language. I had a chance to talk to the Environment Committee last night. And if we decide to send this to workshop, we're just going to vet it here. But if we decide to send it to workshop as per our protocol that we have newly adopted, then we can, the language is not set in stone. The language can be worked so that it is more appropriate to Orono. So we have our Orono people can, and I have examples of other municipalities who have changed the language a little bit to reflect their towns. So is there anyone in our audience who would like to speak? Yes. I think you're muted, Sophie.
I'm working on it. I'm having a little issue. Can you unshare your screen?
Yep.
Yeah, there. Bree Berry would like to talk. Are you okay with that?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. She should be set to go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
we can.
hear my infant?
Yes, as well.
He decided to have something to say right when I did too. I just wanted to say this EPR for packaging bill got really strong support in the legislature in the last session, and then just got lost when all the COVID disruptions happened. And so signing on to this would make a really big impact right now, so this bill doesn't get lost. Because I'm sure the town of Orono knows, but recycling programs have been really hard hit recently, especially with recent issues in China and the COVID-19 crisis. So it's really important now to support something like this. So I just wanted to chime in and say that.
Thank you, Bree.
We have anybody else out there who wanted to speak? Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
You're good to go, Dan.
Do we have Dan?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I just want to echo what Bree was saying. It's, this is a critical time to try and keep this bill alive. And if you're following what's going on in our MSW and recycling world right now, it's unclear what's going to happen with the Coastal Resources Facility. We don't know what recycling prices are going to be if and when that place gets back up and running. So this is kind of like a hedge against, paying too much for recycling. It's like putting some of the responsibility on the producers to produce materials that can be more easily recycled. I know that, we put all of our stuff into zero sort a lot of the time thinking it all gets recycled, and it doesn't. A lot of it ends up in a landfill. So we need to be aware, and I think, it's a little bit of education goes a long way in this case. So it's definitely worth supporting, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. And the other part to this too, that if there's no one else that wants to speak, and one of the reasons that I'm a big supporter of this is because it is a benefit to the municipalities. The way that I actually have a list of, I have two lists. I have a list of countries. This producer responsibility stewardship program is already being done around the world and in Canada. The United States is the last kind of holdout. It's a method by which producers, and when I say producers of packaging, it's everything that you buy that has styrofoam or film or plastic, that we are responsible for. Also, the consumers also responsible for disposing of it, and it goes into our landfills, and we pay for that. So we pay on both ends. The producers that have that are being targeted, to kind of steward their own products, are already paying a fee, and this is a fee program. They're already paying a fee in other places. They're paying a fee in other countries. They're paying a fee in Canada. So this is not new to them. It's just new to us. It's new to the United States. Maine is one of the only states. It was one of the only states. I think there's another state now that's trying to implement this particular law. It is a fee structure, and I cannot even begin to explain the algorithm that goes into how all of the fees are distributed amongst the municipalities. But there is a return on this, and there is a revenue for municipalities that choose to recycle and choose to sign on to this particular law, and then money gets the fees get redistributed again to the municipalities to help them with waste, to help them with the cost of waste, with tipping fees that only go up, with trying to find a way to keep our trash out of landfills and make it more recyclable, more biologically friendly, more earth friendly. And also another reason that I like this particular way of going about doing this is that eventually when the producers of packaging material begin to make environmentally friendly products or packaging, they're not charged as much. So they can essentially, being environmentally friendly is a benefit to everyone. So they're not paying fees, we're not paying fees, our landfills aren't getting filled up, and we are, and it's just an effective system. So point one, they're already doing it. Point two, it's only a benefit. And we also have, in point three, the municipality can get some much needed revenue for waste disposal. So I'm interested in Orono being part of that movement in the state. And I'm just happy, and thank you for letting this vet. And I'm interested to hear what you have to say, actually, as council members.
I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I don't think there'd be anybody necessarily opposed to this. I think it's a pretty solid thing. I think it's a great thing. Jason Langley had a comment he put in the chat line saying Orono should be a leader on this issue. Recycling in its current state is poor and unsustainable. We need to put responsibility back on producers to reduce their waste and packaging and move toward more environmentally friendly packaging. I agree with every point he made there. And Cheryl, I just want to thank you for your work in bringing this in shedding some light on it and getting some attention to it. I would be in support of this. I know other people probably have comments, but just to let you know, I'm supporting this, and I'd be interested in what our next step is to make this happen.
Thank you, Sam.
I'm supportive. I'm so glad that you brought it to us. And then Natural Resources Council of Maine sent us this letter. And I've heard from constituents, including Stuart Dexter, talking about what a problem waste is and how we need to do something about it. And the thing that we can do as town councilors is make a statement so that the legislators, which now I'm included in that too, know that this is important. So that they can, if we don't freeze the session again this year, make some move to put this into law.
Thank you, Lori.
And I would support this and would hope that we would move it on to the next step in our protocol.
Great. And I think the next step is workshop. Is that how we decided we would? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go ahead, Sophie.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. I can speak to the schedule if you'd like.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Just just real quick first. I'm totally in agreement too, Cheryl. I get one of the things that I really would like to kind of get more. I mean, we all know who the beast in this problem is. What is NRCM's role in really kind of going after those guys, even beyond just trying to get them to pay? Because they've been the problem forever. So
Right.
I'm curious about what they're doing beyond this to really kind of try to nail these guys.
NRCM is kind of the backbone of this bill, and they belong to a coalition of environmentally aware NGOs in the state, around the state. And so they have, Sarah Nichols is more or less the author of this with a lot of community support. And so that's part of what they do, is they really try to promote fair, and equitable ways of being more environmentally friendly. It's a fairly decent sized organization in Maine right now.
Thank you. Sophie?
So we normally would move this onto a scheduled workshop. Because of holidays in January and February, you don't have scheduled workshops. So my suggestion would be the January meeting, I don't think will be too long. So perhaps we could schedule a workshop at the end of the January meeting, which would allow you to move this forward to February council meeting for final action if you're ready for it.
I would be okay with that if the rest of you guys are.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Sounds fine.
Okay, it's a plan.
Great. Thank you
Great.
so much, and thank you to the people who came to hear the meeting tonight. I appreciate it.
Great. So moving on to number 4, Parks and Recreation's winter facilities and programming update. And I'm sure Mitch is going to give us a nice little presentation here.
So I will keep it brief. I will kind of flip it around a little bit and talk a little bit about programming, kind of what we have going on, and then into some facility stuff. But I wanted everybody to know, and I know this conversation has been had, and I know Sophie has mentioned kind of the work that we've been doing. Currently on Sunday, well, Monday and Tuesday, they'll be judging the community lights, light up the community event. The deadline for that is Sunday to sign up. So those of you that are procrastinators, you could sign up on Sunday, maybe get it done this weekend if you can find lights anywhere. So that's going on. I hope everybody has recognized the front of the town office. I do want to give a huge shout out to Megan, who has carried the lion's share of that, has made more trips to Home Depot than you could imagine, to make all that happen. And one of the things that's really neat that it's hard to see, especially at night, is that along with that, she worked with the schools and sent out over 300 snowflake kits so the kids could design the snowflakes, and they've sent them back and they're actually hanging from the trees out front. So those are kids from our community that have decorated the snowflakes that are hanging from that. And I think the windstorm kind of did a little bit on her hanging, but they are there. So if you get a chance to see that, she's just done a fabulous job with that. So that is awesome. The other thing we have going on is the Do Good December that is Morgan is working with at the library. All that can be found on all of our Facebook pages, but the library Facebook page. I also do want to go back, and the wonderful gingerbread people that are out front, Morgan actually painted those herself. And as I think Sophie told you, pretty much everything out there is handmade, except for the lights. So a pretty talented group of people we have working for us, and talents that they didn't think they were going to be asked to use, actually. So, the other thing that we have coming up, and we talked about it a little bit, was we've launched already. Signups are available for an esports league, which is new. It's kind of a pilot to see what it looks like. We had thought that this would be a good filler, but with the current situation, we've put it out there to see how it will work, how people will respond to that. And I know it's also tough because we're asking people to say, hey, why don't you go online a little bit more? So we understand that, but during the current state, we thought it was an opportunity maybe to introduce something and give that a shot. The other piece to this is kind of our winter facilities. As you know, we have a very huge group of people that like the outdoor rink, and the outdoor rink presents a lot of challenges in the current climate change because of the fluctuation. We actually have started, Bob has spent the last 3 days out in the frigid weather, putting water down to freeze to kind of build a base. In actuality, what we're hoping we can do is build a big enough base to survive the warm weather coming next week so that we can continue to build that. It is a challenge with that rink, the way that it is set up. And there are a lot of different ways that you can build outdoor rinks, but the way that's designed, the only way you can do it is to put water down on the ground because of its size. It is 200 feet by 80 feet, which is, regulation size, which in terms of water, when you talk about 6 to 8 inches of ice that need to be out there, it's almost 100,000 gallons of water that goes on that. So to put that down, you can't just open the hose, fill it up like you do the pool and hope it freezes. It's got to be put down in layers. It's got to be cold enough to freeze. The ground's got to be frozen. So that presents a lot of challenges there. We're working at it. We're hoping that that's going to be good to go in the same time frame, and that's all based on Mother Nature, which is part of that challenge. Tied to that is that we were able to purchase a smaller kind of pop-up rink, and I just got word right before this that we are working with the owner of the old Camden National Bank to put that in the parking lot there. So we would have a small 30 by 60 rink that is more of your fill it up and let it freeze variety, has a liner and has a whole system that would be able to be used downtown. There would be no parking there. They would park either in the town lot or the Pine Street lot, but more for your smaller kids, not a big area, but trying to kind of work with both things. The other challenge we have this year is the fact that there's construction, so the access is a little bit challenging out there. Along with that, we've talked to the school about possible COVID money that might be able to be used to look at how we can better prepare the rink to use it to be more useful, what changes we could make. It up there at the high school, they use it quite a bit for their gym classes. As we all know, right now, being outside is really the only place we can be. I think the other thing that is coming for us in this is that not having our own facility has made it kind of been magnified, because we are trying to work with everybody else that is in a bind, trying to find spaces to do programming. So I think the addition of the smaller rink is great. Maybe bring some folks downtown as well to support the local businesses, and work with folks to try to give that a little different experience downtown. So we are those things, you know, I hate to put a specific timetable, but you're probably looking at January, best case scenario, you know, beginning of January, having at least one of those up and running, or at least scalable. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know if anybody has any questions or not, but.
I think it sounds awesome, Mitch, actually. Do you have a little Zamboni for the,
So you laugh. Right before I got on this, I looked at it and I said, hey, you know how you made all those decorations? What do you think about a DIY Zamboni for our small rink? And she got a big smile and she says, I'm willing to look at it. Let's figure it out. So
maybe we can get some ice skating shovels out there too.
I do think that we can likely work with our extremely talented public works team, and they created the pushers and things like that. So we might be able to scale something down to be used, but I'm excited to be looking at a different way of providing some services. Mitch and I continue to look at ways that we can augment outdoor support, outdoor activity. Meredith Higgins from the superintendent's office at the RSU 26 has been really open to trying to figure out how we can create opportunities for people to be active. Unfortunately, most of it has to be outdoors. Well, maybe not unfortunately for me.
Just great work all the way around. That goes for everybody that's been, doing the decorations, everything, great solutions. I love the idea of the small ice rink, and this is coming from someone who would not put his pair of skates on to save his life. I think this is just fantastic. So well done, Mitch, and everybody. Please pass that on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I especially like that she sent things out to students for them to participate in the decorations. That's wonderful.
I also think that, want to thank Ace Adams. We talked to the principal there, and they were all about, some of them actually did stuff in their classrooms, which was nice. And I think it gave them an opportunity to do some things that maybe they couldn't have done otherwise. So we really do appreciate that.
The only other thing I would just add to the snowflakes is that the kit that went out made 3 snowflakes. It made a wooden one, a plastic one, and a metal one. They only had to return 1. So some kids got extremely creative and put them all together to make one ornament. But other folks had the opportunity to have a couple of snowflake ornaments to hang on their own tree, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is just, kind of an indication when we put resources to this, we can really be creative and put out a nice product. I'm incredibly proud of what Mitch, his staff, Lori at the library, and her staff have been doing. I feel like we are building community through social distance, a time of social distance, and I'm really pleased with my staff.
I think the idea of having a smaller ice rink on the Camden National Bank lot is wonderful, and it's great that the owner of that property is supportive of that idea and helpful, because that's right downtown, and it's for safety. It's gonna. I was up at the construction site and thought, wow, it'd be harder to get to the skating rink when it's ready. So it's great to have something right downtown.
Great. Well, as always, Mitch, great. It's good to see people downtown. It's good to see people doing things, which because it's really hard anyway. I have not yet been able to do the lights because along the trail system, because the last 2 times I went there, it was mobbed and I didn't feel comfortable walking with all those people. So I will, though, make it there probably Christmas Eve late or something like that. So, but as always, you guys do an amazing job, and we appreciate that. Anything else for Mitch?
No.
Great. So we move on to Sophie for brief town managers.
Yes. This is probably, majority of this is internal items that I thought the council would be interested in. But with changes in COVID and the transmission, the rates, the surge that we're dealing with at this moment, we've made some new interpretations of our personnel ordinance. So as related to requesting, people being able to request vacation leave, we have always tried very hard to facilitate employees taking time. We've had to now ask for some more detail and really be thinking about how operations will be impacted by certain types of vacation. So working with the town attorney, getting ready to roll that out. But staff thus far has been pretty receptive to understanding the position that the town is in and the fact that we are providing essential services and need people to do that.
Yep.
I also took the liberty to speak on behalf of council. We sent a letter out to our staff, letting them know how appreciative we were of their efforts in the last year, telling them how much we will miss the annual employee recognition luncheon. You will begin to see small messages from me where I take my heartfelt off-the-cuff speech that I do every year and have broken it into 5 or 6 little written elements for them to be able to hear or see. It was suggested I do it on Zoom and I can't do that. So we'll put it out in writing. But the other thing that I did on behalf of council is acknowledge the fact that we have asked our staff to put the town first in front of their families in many ways. And so we have offered the last day of the year as an opportunity for our non-union staff to spend time with their families. So I did ask our council chair to make sure that I was within my scope of authority, but we are going to close down non-emergency services on December 31st and allow staff to spend that day with their family. Because our 2 bargaining units are emergency services, we worked with the department heads and the units to come up with similar arrangements, but in a way that won't leave a liability for the town. So they're getting some opportunity to take paid time off in other ways. So they are very appreciative. So thank you. I also received word last night that the university has approved our request to join asymptomatic testing. So we'll be rolling that out to our employees on a voluntary basis. Some of our EMS staff will be in the first tier for the vaccine. However, I think we're going to do whatever we can to facilitate it being offered. Chief Lowe is working with the region, with Northern Light and regional fire departments, EMS departments to help facilitate that. But at this point, we are not going to make that a mandatory vaccine. I feel really strongly that it's I don't think we have the ability at this point, at this juncture, to make it mandatory. So we'll offer it, facilitate it the best we can, but not mandate it, that our employees take it. I don't know if anybody's been down College Ave in the recent past, coming from Old Town towards Orono. As you come into town, you will see we are the owners of a beautiful new dynamic speed sign. So as you're coming into town, it will flash if you're speeding and tell you to slow down. And we have a couple of residents along that corridor who have been keeping a close eye and are reporting that it's making a difference. So we're really excited about that. MDOT found 2 more signs for Orono. We seem to be sign happy here. They like to give us those kind of signs. One is going to go on the University of Maine campus in a place that they feel is appropriate. And I have asked Rob Yerxa and Josh Ewing to work on putting the other sign in a place where we get complaints about speeding. So you should see another one go up locally in the near future. That's just another place where Rob's relationship with DOT and the fact that he is so easy to work with benefits our community, because they're not giving those out all over the place, which is great. And finally, Joe Madigan and our engineer, both Mandy and Bill Alver, are working on a state revolving loan fund application for the wastewater portion of the Mahaney Development Project. So you should expect to see on the next agenda some of those very long resolves that hopefully somebody will agree to waive the reading that will allow us to submit the application. The way it works is we don't know whether or not we'll qualify for any grant forgiveness, but if we don't qualify for grant forgiveness, we will still perhaps likely qualify for a low interest loan. So we're very excited to kind of get that underway. I think the plan is still to try to do that, get that project bid out this spring and underway. There was a question in the chat about, will UMaine's asymptomatic testing extend to Orono teachers? And my arrangement is around town staff. Specifically, the argument we made is that our emergency response personnel are responding up on campus, and the people, other members of our staff, are providing services to campus directly, coming in contact with their people, and are in contact with first responders. So that's the argument that we made, and it prevailed. So I don't know if the school is going to reach out and try to have a conversation with the university or not.
Could we possibly let Meredith and or others know that this was happening, and maybe, I mean, I know we don't want to stick our noses in other things, but this is sort of a community impact thing, and think there is some crossover between the university and our local school as well.
I think I would probably do it the other way and suggest, I would want to reach out to the university first and see whether or not they'd be receptive. Our contact. And I will tell you, Sam, it took me 2.5 weeks to get an answer for us. So I don't know.
Sure. Well, things are nice and slow now for them, so I'm sure they'll be eager to have a response.
Well, and I don't think that response was that people weren't pushing. I think we had a lot of push through the EOC to help us make this happen.
Sure, but I think it'd be great if we could maybe float that at some point, not to give you one more thing to do, but I think it would be a great thing for the community.
So, sure. So the other update I have is that for counselors who weren't here at the beginning, that I was working from home today and tomorrow because our carpets were supposed to get installed on the second floor of Town Hall. The snow put that schedule is no longer in place. So we are trying to get them to schedule a Saturday, Sunday. It's a 2-day install. So that I can go back to work. But I got so much done today that I'm probably going to work from home tomorrow too. So if you need me, you know how to reach me.
Good for you, Sophie.
All right.
Great. So just sort of before I let everybody go, I want to remind everybody, if you didn't see, today was yet another worst day for COVID in Maine. 590 cases, 9 deaths. So continue being distanced and doing the right things, and stay healthy out there. So if no one else has anything, I will say goodbye to you all. Oh wait, Sophie?
One more.
Just one more thing. So we had not planned on a regular workshop this week. So we don't have any meetings next week. On the 28th, which is Monday, the 28th of December, we are scheduled to have a finance and operations committee meeting.
And then there's nothing else until 2021?
Nothing else till 2021. And part of what I plan to do tomorrow in the quiet of my home is to get all of those meetings in the first quarter mapped out for us and invites sent to you.
Great.
Great.
Next year.
Indeed.
So
Yeah.
I neglected to say an acknowledgement in our last meeting, and doesn't have as big an audience, but I want to say that as a legislator, I was invited to listen to what's going on at UMaine. And there was a lovely presentation and included Jean McCrae singing the praises of our town, Sophie and all of the people at the wastewater treatment plant, and how helpful they are in working with Jean and the university. She's environmental engineering that have been doing the testing of the waste stream. And so that was for all the legislators that were invited to. They were all invited, and the ones that came got to put that Orono was in the spotlight as being fabulous. What Jean actually said is, every time I talk to Orono, they always say yes. That's so rare in the world. So thank you very much, Sophie and the team. Joe Madigan, he also called out by name as that he's been a partner for the 21 years she's been at the university in doing research with her.
Well, I'm Joe Madigan's biggest fan. All right, guys. Nice.
Okay, everyone.
Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.